Okay, so today we're going to do a fun project that's going to introduce recording. It's going to go a little deeper on the simpler sampler instrument that you've used already a little bit, or you've encountered if you haven't played with inside drum racks. And we're going to look at some MIDI effects. The first thing I want you to do, though, is to check your audio input settings. So this is under Live Preferences. And then click the audio tab. Since we're going to be recording, unless you have your own audio interface and microphone set up, you'll probably just choose your built-in microphone, whatever that is. I've got an extra box and a microphone called Scarlett, so I'm going to use that. And recording is really easy. So first you need an audio track. So if you don't have one up, you can go to Create, Insert Audio Track, or Command T. Then you need to check where the audio is coming from. You need to choose external in if it's not already chosen. And then you have inputs. So my Scarlett audio interface has two inputs, and I can see from the green here that I'm plugged into channel 1. If you just have your computer mic, it's probably already green and bouncing. The next thing to do is to arm the track. That's this kind of record looking button at the very bottom under your solo button. Just as in recording MIDI, which we saw last time, when the track is armed, each clip area gets a record button instead of a stop or a play button. So I'm just going to record myself singing one note. Ah, ah, ah. So I'd like everybody to take a moment and try to achieve this. Send me a question through the chat if you get stuck. And if you don't think of yourself as a singer, do not worry. Do it anyway. We're going to be manipulating this in a way that does not really matter. So we'll meet back up here in about 2 minutes, and I'll answer your questions in the meantime. Jacob asks, should we pick one or two for the channel or just one? Yes, this is a stereo mono option. Look and see what, just what's green. Where are you getting sound in? If you're getting sound in both channels, then you have two microphones going on and you can choose 1/2 and get stereo. But probably you just have sound coming in one channel. And in that case, just pick the one that it's running in. Cool, Pascal is not seeing the input-output options on his channel strip. These are actually, this is an area that you can show and hide. And actually all of these areas are things that you can show and hide, and you can toggle those over here on the far right. Oh, I was gonna make a big old mouse for you guys today. Stability. Nope. There we go. Pardon me just a second. Big old cursor. Hopefully that helps today. So over here on the right, you have I/O, which shows and hides inputs and outputs, and all of these things on the right show and hide different parts of the track display. David wants to know if we should have air on either side of the note or have it be continuous. Why don't you put some air on either side? We can always adjust this later. John, 2i4, where are you seeing that? Pascal, go to your live preferences and go to audio and make sure that you have an audio input device selected. Oh, good point, Jacob. How about I answer questions in the chat while y'all are working? Cool. In case anyone needs to see this again, I'm going to go through those steps. We've gone to preferences, audio, and we've selected our input device. Then we go to an audio track, and under audio from, we choose external in. And then choose whichever channel has sound coming in green. If you don't see audio from, go over here to the right-hand side of the screen and toggle on I/O. Then arm the track here, turning this red. And then you've got sound in. Cool, this is for everybody. This is new information. Let's talk a little about monitoring. So right now, this is gray. I don't hear myself in my headphones when I'm talking. And that's because monitor is off. We've got 3 monitor modes. When it's off, you don't hear the live sound that's coming in, but you do hear sound if I loop my clip. Auto. I get a little delay here, so it's a little confusing to my ears. So I'm going to keep it off, but auto monitors the track when nothing is playing on it. So right now you hear my voice in real time, but if I were to record a loop and then start playing it, it would take over. So watch this. Hey, so I'm talking now, but it's not coming into my ears. I realize it's coming into your ears because it's coming through Zoom. And then the last mode is in, which means even if something is playing on the track, we won't hear the track. We just hear whatever's coming in live. You pretty much won't use this unless you're setting up, I'm going to turn it off. You pretty much won't use this unless you're setting it up for live performance. And maybe you make a track that is your microphone for you to play your violin in live. That's when you would use that. Pascal, are you still having trouble?
It's working now, thank you. I don't know this, but it works now. Okay,
great. So we've all recorded a note of ourselves singing. We're going to turn that into an instrument. So I'm going to open up my browser, go to Instruments, and choose Simpler. Drag it and drop it on an empty MIDI track or on this empty area over here, or you can just double click it and it'll make a new track with that Simpler on it. Yeah, so watch this. I'll give you a couple of steps and then we'll take a break for you to do it yourselves. To to see what instrument is on a track or any effects or anything on that track, you double click the track header here. And so now I have simpler showing. I'm going to take that recording of my voice and drag it and drop it where it says drop sample here. And now I'm going to change the name of this track, Command R to rename. And I'm going to say like long tone. And now I arm the track down here, and my MIDI keyboard will play my sound. Haha. I'm gonna go up an octave. So it transposes my note based on the note that I'm playing. I can do a couple of things right away to clean this up. Right now there's this lag from when I play to when it starts, and so I can move the start point a little later. And last, I'm getting some, chipmunking effect, and there's actually a way to counteract that. You turn on warp, and you change warp mode to complex pro, and make sure formants is up high. So basically, this is it's like analyzing the formants in your voice and compensating for the transposition. Long acoustics conversation tabled here about formants in your voice, but basically they're what makes your voice sound natural. So when you're at different pitches, so it's compensating for the transposition. You can change the gain in the simpler here, or you can change the gain here. I'm honestly not sure if that is going to get reflected when you drop it here. No, it takes the raw sound. So go ahead and just turn up the volume here. Okay, everyone take a couple of minutes and get yourself an instrument made from their voice. I'll answer questions in chat. Okay, so for those of you not yet hearing a sound here, you have two options. One, you can play it in if you have a MIDI keyboard, and that's done by arming the track and then playing notes on your keyboard. You can also just type in, let's see, you can also use your typing keyboard as a keyboard by going up here, clicking on this little keyboard button, and now your letters on your typing keyboard are a piano, where A is C, and F is F, and then everything lays out black and white keys like a piano. And then the other way to do it is to just click in a melody, for example, this. So I created an empty region just by double clicking on a blank spot, and it gives me a bar to work with. And then you can click in some notes and hit play here. I'm going to keep trying to get to your questions. Lita and Brad, I hope that that helped you. Pascal, you can't select, so you recorded something over here and it plays.
I can only see the audio in horizontal view.
Is this where you recorded?
Yes.
Yes, great. Then that's fine. You can move things back and forth from the two views, but it doesn't matter. If you've got a sample here, you can also drag it into your simpler.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. I'm still having some issue with the vertical view where like nothing shows up in the boxes where yours are.
Nothing shows up in these boxes? You got it? Okay.
No, that's exactly what's happening. Nothing's showing up there.
Oh, well, you can make a clip by double clicking the blank space, or you can record a clip by hitting the record button if the track is armed.
Okay, thank you. I'll figure this out.
Cool, great. Devin, I'm not sure about a flanger effect that you're getting, but yes, I am playing back a chord. This is just one note at a time. Lita, keyboard view is just this toggle button up here, and it doesn't actually show you anything different when you're in that mode, but when it's yellow and when a track is armed, then you can use ASDF to play notes. And you can use Z and X to go down and up different octaves. Cool, let's play with this for 30 more seconds. I am overdressed and overheating. I'll be right back. It's the first beautiful day in New York in a couple of days, and it is warm out. Oh good, I see some nice singy faces. Warp to Complex Pro, voice goes full chipmunk. Complex Pro and the performance is turned up to 100. I mean, if you go up really high, it's still gonna sound weird. Yeah, Brad, Ableton 8, all bets are off. I forget what that all looks like. Yes, the default note that the original sample is tuned to is middle C. And if you want to pitch the note that you sang to be an actual C, so that when you play notes on the keyboard, they are the correct notes, you can click over to Controls and do Transpose and use some kind of reference pitch to get your note that you sang into there. But I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to be in whatever key I happen to sing that in. Okay, let's move on to the next idea, and I'll try to catch up the couple of you who need a little extra help on our next break. Cool. So the simpler instrument is super useful. I use it all the time. It's the main software instrument that I end up using. And it has a couple of modes. We're going to explore the slice mode next. But first, I'm going to record some kind of mouth percussion, just like short sounds with my mouth. So if you're having trouble so far recording, this is another chance to watch and see the process here. So I have the track armed. I've chosen external in, and whichever of my tracks, whichever of my inputs has green coming in. And now I'm going to hit the record button on one of these empty clip slots and just make some noises. Stop. Okay, so I've just made a whole bunch of little short sounds, and I'm going to slice this up and play this like drums. Also super easy with simpler. So I'm going to go over to instruments, grab another simpler, drop it to my empty space here. Take this second sample, maybe I'll give it a name, Command R to rename, mouth percussion, long tone. I double click the track header to see the simpler, and then I'll drag my mouth percussion sample here. And I'll turn on slice mode. So slice mode analyzes the audio and it looks for transients. So here the mode is to slice by transient. A transient is a strong initial impulse on a sound. It's how it guesses where the start of something is. And it's going to slice it with these blue lines. So each one of these areas in between the blue lines is a different key on my keyboard now. And there's a bunch of silence here at the beginning that it's trying to read, so I'm going to move the initial starting point here. Yes, and it's cutting some of my sounds in the middle and getting some silent things, so I'm going to turn down sensitivity a little bit. Look what happens. If I turn down sensitivity, I just get fewer lines. And so I get longer samples. So this all looks good to me, except I'm a little worried about this one. I would really like all of those whistles to be different notes. So I'm going to turn it up a little more till I get there. So next you can play around on your keyboard until you find a rhythm that you like. Or you can double click to make yourself an empty new clip. And then just double click to make notes and drag them around until you find the sound that you like. If you're not hearing the sounds that you made, make sure you turn on this guy. And I'm just gonna make up a little beat here real fast. So that looks like a nice bass drum. So I'm gonna select this this beat, Command D to duplicate. Got a couple of whistles. Maybe look for a hi-hat. That's kind of a snare. And I do I'm gonna find a hi-hat. There we go. Copy these across, maybe take a couple of them out just for a little variation. Zero mutes a note. Nice. Cool. So why don't you all take a few minutes, record some mouth percussion, drop it on a simpler instrument in slice mode, and make yourself a beat. I'll answer questions.
Elliot,
Yes.
how do I get, this is Lucy, how do I get to that note view that you were just on?
Double click an empty clip slot.
Okay.
And then you got one. Cool.
Yeah, and then I just record into that?
You can record by hitting the record button on an empty space, or you can double click to create an empty one and then click something in.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move forward a little bit. Y'all ready? I'm going to point out a couple of things about what we've just done and then go into the next idea. So first of all, I'm getting a couple of questions about having sounds play simultaneously. Take a look here on the simpler instrument. We've got an option here for playback that's currently on mono. That means only one thing can happen at a time. Turn that to poly, and that's what you want. And that's why I was a little, that's why I moved these over. I was like, why aren't I hearing those bass drums? There we go. So just make sure that you turn on poly here. Another option that you might want to play with is gate. So if it's turned on to gate, then the note will only play as long as you hold down the key. So that's me holding down the key a long time, but I can also play short versions. If it's on trigger, it plays the entire sound every time you do it. So if you like short drums, it's a small difference here, but it could be a difference. Oh yeah, now everything's overlapping, right? Everything's just a little more crisp when gate is on. Cool. The next thing I want to show you is, I think it's our first audio effect. So whenever you're making drums, there's a great all-in-one audio effect for drums called drum bus. It's just going to make everything punchy, give you some more weight and definition to drum sounds. So I suggest going to audio effects, choosing drum bus, dragging it after the sound, and then playing with the qualities here. So drive and crunch are going to give some saturation and distortion, which is going to make sounds a little more analog sounding if you're working with digital sounds. Boom is going to add some sub bass to any low notes, and you can pick the pitch of that sub bass here. Transients is going to kind of shape those initial attacks of the sound, and listen to how dramatic it is when I compress it. So I know your sound quality isn't great here, but you'll see for yourself in a moment. I'm about to turn on the drum bus. Already brighter. And now the compressor. It just makes everything much more present. And a lot more like drums. I'm gonna record myself some chords here. And get the beginning of a beat. So let's all take a few minutes and try to achieve something like this with our beat. Add the drum bus, record yourself or write yourself a loop on your long tone, and let me know if you have questions. Okay, let's come back. So I want to do a quick detour here. If working with notes and chords is new for you, or if you want to play around, let's see. There's a couple of MIDI effects here that do some math on the numbers of the MIDI notes that you play that can help you out with pitch and chord stuff. So the first one that I want to show you is chord. So you go under MIDI effects. I'm going to make a copy of my long tone track to work from, just because I like what's going on here already. So under MIDI effects, we have these options. And the first one I want you to take a look at is chord. So you can open up any of these and see all the presets. And let's just pick a major chord. I'm going to drop it on this track or here on this instrument. And this is going to add a major chord on top of any note that you play. So now I'm just playing C on my keyboard. So that's an easy way to get a chord. There's also scale, which is going to filter any note that you play into a single scale. And there's a whole list of possibles that it has. All of these can be transposed. So if you want G minor, you grab the C minor one and transpose it. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it after my chord effect here. So it's going to take the note I play, add 2 notes to it to make it a chord, and then it's going to filter it through this scale. You can transpose it here if you want to go up to G minor. That transposes all the notes. Or you can change this to get a different root. I want to do a quick, so the chord effect goes in the chain. So I'll describe this whole concept for you here. The instrument that you open, the track that you open, is actually a whole chain of events that happens left to right. On a MIDI track, those events start with MIDI notes, which are just a couple of numbers that say when to play and what note to play and how hard to hit it. So we've got numbers coming in on the left. It's adding extra notes to it here. It's filtering those here into the scale. So all MIDI effects are dropped at the beginning. They end up before the instrument. It's at the instrument that we go from MIDI into audio. After the instrument is where all of the audio effects fall. So our flow goes from left to right, from MIDI into an instrument, becomes audio, and then out through audio effects. I'll get to these questions in a second. Cool. Great. So those are a couple of MIDI effects. There's another one that you might use here, which is pitch, which is just a basic transpose. So you can move things around easily with a pitch knob. And I also really like random. I know I'm going quickly here. I just want you to have seen these. I use random a lot. So you turn up the chance. It's going to do a probability of adding a random number between 0 and 12 and multiplying it by scale. So now I'm going to put it after the chord, so it's going to randomize each note of the chord. And I'm just playing the same note over and over again on my keyboard. So let's all take a few minutes and practice playing with these MIDI effects. Pick a scale that you want to work with, add a chord, and you can record yourself making a loop or just play around on the keyboard and see how it works. We'll circle back in about 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple more things here in the last couple of minutes, and then I'm happy to stick around for a little while and help those of you who are still having trouble. First, I've had a couple of questions just about random, so I'll say again how it works, and I think the best thing to do is really just play with it. Choices is a range of numbers between 0 and 12 that are going to be randomly added to the pitch of the note coming in this % of the time. So 100% of the time, it's going to add some random number between 0 and 12. Scale is a multiplier. If I have 3 choices and my scale is 3, let's say my scale is 5, then it's going to add either 5, 10, or 15 to my pitch coming in. If I want it to subtract instead of add, I do here. If I want to subtract or add, I do here. And this will actually cycle through the possible options rather than play them at random, so you can get some more predictable patterns out of alt. I don't know what the rationale is for why they called these presets these things. I don't know. Okay, I want to show you now also a little more about our long tone sample, or the simpler in general. A couple of questions I've had about clicking. Clicking is going to happen when, let me go back over here, when the sample starts in the middle of a waveform. So if I do this and I pick a spot where it's right here, and I play, I get a click at the beginning. If I move that starting point instead to a place where it's crossing 0, I should get less of a click. That is the theory anyway. So I suggest moving around the starting point, but you can also smooth out the attack by turning up attack here in the envelope. This is going to give me 8.5 milliseconds of fade in at the beginning of the sound, or half a second or 1 second. And that is going to get rid of any clicks that you have if you turn up attack. There's also one other way to get a similar result. If you want to slice up a sample like this into a bunch of different drums, there is I forget if it's in all of the Ableton versions or just some of them, so bear with me if you don't have this option. But on any region, any clip, you can control click and say slice to new MIDI track. There's a bunch of different presets that give you different built-in effects on these that you can explore. I'm just going to give the basic one, and then you can say I want to slice it either at the transients where it thinks the main events are, or if it's a rhythmic sample that you have that already has some meter going on, you can choose a subdivision that you want to slice it to. I hit OK, and boom, I've got a drum rack where each one of these slices is already loaded into a simpler. You can rename them with Command R. And then there's some effects for shaping all of them. I can change the attack on every single one. I can start it at a slightly later point on every later one.
Sorry, Elliot, you did carbonized rack?
Oh, I just did the preset one built in,
Okay.
but yeah, try it out. They all have different vibes about them.
Thanks.
And then let's see, the last thing I want to equip you with is loop. So check this out. On my long tone, I'm holding down the note, it goes away. I can turn on loop. And I can change the loop region with a combination of length and loop. And now it'll loop this area. So I can get a sustained sound out of a finite sound. And you can make it sound more or less noticeable that it's looping just by playing around with the length and the loop. And get totally sustained sounds. Yeah. So you just find a portion that feels the most natural. Ah, that's pretty good, real short. So this could be your voice. This could be any sound that you bring in to the program from samples. You could do this with samples you got from packs, and make your own instruments. We'll do a deep dive on filter and controls and the LFO and the envelopes on a later date. Okay, so thank you so much for coming. Homework. I'll just write about it. We're just going to keep making material, keep making loops that work together. In a couple of classes, we're going to start taking all of the sketching that we're doing and converge on a track. So we'll work on arranging, song structure, and for that, you really are going to want like 3 really good loops of 2, 4, 8, 16 bars that have a bunch of different layers on them, like maybe too many layers, but where everything fits together. And from there, it'll be really easy to parse it all out into a song structure. So yeah, take a look for the video, take a look for the class notes and assignment. I'm going to keep doing videos of my own practice so that you can see my process. And let me know if you have questions in the meantime. If you haven't joined the Discord server, there is a lively discussion and work share going on. I'm really happy to see that. And if you've got a couple extra bucks and you want to make a donation, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Cool. Let's switch now into question time. I will scroll back and catch up with you. Okay, so if I told you we should work personally, if you private messaged me, why don't you stick around for a little longer so that we can see your screen one at a time? But let me ask, I'll try to answer the questions that might apply to everybody first. Got Jacob's question. Gabriella, and feel free to turn on your mics for this time. Some clipping when you change notes. Did this attack thing solve that?
No, it didn't. I think it's making my CPU very, very high. I don't know if it's related to that.
Let me show everybody a trick about CPU. So first of all, warping may be adding to the load for you. So if you like the results without warping, you could try that first and spare yourself. But also under preferences, in audio, you've got this thing about buffer size under latency. So basically, you can do, let me try to think this through. If you have a larger sample size, then you will have larger latency, but it will use less CPU. And if you use a smaller sample size, you'll have less latency, like if you're recording, but it'll have to calculate much more often because it's doing calculations every 32 samples rather than every 512 samples. So that's one thing that I know about CPU. And you can, let's see, there's a workflow process for taking things that you make on a MIDI instrument that maybe runs some software that's high, that's expensive. But then you can just record it to audio. So then you can get rid of the track that has the instrument on it, the MIDI version, and just work with all of the audio that you recorded. So if you want to do that, you can make a new audio track, set audio from the track that you want to record from, and arm it. And so now I'm going to record that thing. And now I have an audio recording over here of that, which is way less CPU intensive than this. So the way I frequently work is to do a pass of with whatever my instruments are, and just record a whole bunch of material and then go back and collage. And then you're not making a different MIDI track with a different instrument for every single layer that you want to have. You're just working in audio, which is much cheaper. Let's see. Yeah, and I just suggest Googling CPU Ableton management. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm sure people are talking about it. Gabriella, slice to drum rack is on any audio clip. You can control click and say slice to new MIDI track. Can you just show us one more time how you were able to adjust the blue loop section of the simpler mode? Yeah, it's a little funny to me that you can't do it with your hands when you can do so much else that way, but you just turn on loop, and it's a combination of the loop length and the overall length that work together in a slightly spooky, not intuitive way. Jacob, smoothing out a loop. So my first idea is just trial and error, different sizes. The next is that you can have a fade. And honestly, I don't know why you can't fade while warp mode is on. So you have to choose one or the other. But if you turn off warp mode, then you have this fade control, which is going to do a crossfade between each of the cycles and get it smoother there. Yeah, so those are your choices. Devin, yes, this is super useful. I'm going to shoot everybody. I'm going to make a little tutorial about this and drop it in the folder. The short answer is it's really, really easy to bring any tracks, clips, whatever from one project file into another. And to do that, you just need to put that folder in places. So like I've got my music folder with all of my Ableton projects in it. I just drag that whole projects folder into, I guess I don't have it, into places. Then in places, I can navigate and each of my projects open up, and each of the projects open up into each of the tracks. And so I could get a whole track, or, oh no, I just crashed my program. I'm not, and I know why. It's I was using exactly on that track a VST plugin that has been crashing my thing. So let me open that up real fast. But yeah, just drag the folder of your projects into places, and then you can navigate to get inside your project folders. You can even bring individual clips or whole tracks in. Great. I'm going to hit the next couple of questions, and then Rupert, I'm going to help you, and Laura, I'm going to help you if you're still around. We can do one-on-one stuff. Lucian, sampler out of curiosity. Yes, it is big and scary. I haven't used it much actually myself because Simpler is so great, but now your Simpler is in multi-sample mode and you can't see the waveform mode. I don't have a quick answer for you. I haven't run into this, except to say that multi-sample mode is how you could set up an instrument where you have a different sample for each note. Like if you were going to sample a piano and do a really good job, you wouldn't just have one piano note sample that you transpose. You would actually record each note of the piano. And you would drop each of those notes on a different key, kind of like a drum rack is right now. But there is a multi-sample mode. I know for sampler, I don't know about simpler, that lets you assign different samples to each key, or not even just to each key, but you might even want to sample like a loud note on the piano and then a quiet note on the piano and have it play different samples based on how loud you hit your keyboard. So yeah, big, wide, complicated world of making really, really nice sampler instruments. And you don't need to worry about that. But I'm not sure how to get back to where you were, except I would just like make a new simpler track and drag the sample in again and start from scratch if you can't figure it out. David, what's the window where you can slice? The slice is under simpler if you choose slice mode. I hope that is the answer to your question. Cool. Any other questions for the whole group? And then I can talk to Rupert and Laura. Gabriella, I'm still a little vague on the assignment myself. Let me think for a moment more. I'll type it up and put it in that document inside our course materials folder. Cool. Great. Lita, how about you and I work one-on-one in like 15 minutes? Cool. I'll yeah, stay on and I'll circle back to you in a few. Okay. Oh, hey, Natasha. Yeah. Let me work with Rupert for a moment and see if I can help him generally, and then I'll move along, try to get to everybody. Cool. Okay, Rupert, can you be more specific about what you're having trouble with? Feel free to put your microphone on.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah.
Hi, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, I can't really work out why. Maybe something to do with the monitor options. I can't really work out why when I've got like a track open that it won't play my MIDI. I play the MIDI keyboard and nothing happens, but then I get a playback from the grid from the matrix.
Okay.
But then I can't scroll down the keyboard on the grid and get any of the sounds. Neither do they show up when I play anything on the MIDI keyboard. And also, like, I have like two simplers up, like you made, and one of them, like, I can't. Yeah, I can't seem to get. I don't know what. I think maybe I should show you my screen because I think I've clicked all the stuff in the wrong way and everything's got very confused, but nothing seems logical to me.
Cool. I have one thing.
Could be
One thing for you to try first, which is just to play a couple of notes on your screen and see in the top right corner if you have some yellow light happening.
When you say on my screen, you mean
you could look at look at mine in the top right where I'm pointing.
Oh, hang on.
When I play notes, I get an orange flashing.
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah.
Great. So the MIDI is working.
Yeah.
And then when you arm the track and you are on a simpler and you play a note, nothing happens.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, so you have to, okay. Yeah. So you have to arm the track every time.
Yes, that's how the track knows to listen for your keyboard.
Sorry.
Super.
I knew it would be something very stupid. But similarly, is there a way you can scroll down the keyboard on the matrix and hear the sounds of the samples without playing them on your keyboard? Does that make sense?
Sorry, say that again.
Are you able to? Is there a way to, with the cursor, with the mouse cursor, to scroll down the keyboard matrix and make the sound trigger? Because I can do them with the. Okay.
Yeah. So check this out. If you go to the left of the keyboard, you get a magnifying glass. You can click and drag up and down to slide.
Yeah.
Or you can pull left and right to make it bigger or littler.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you click the headphones here, so
Yeah.
that it's blue, then you can click on the key and hear the sound.
Okay.
Working?
Sure. Yeah. And is it possible to? One thing I was trying to do, so I was getting playback. It's possible to. No, okay. I've answered. It all seems to be magically sorted. Sorry.
Yes, that's my.
I have a computer phobia. So.
Great. It's my annoying power. When someone has trouble with their computer, I usually just like stand over their shoulder and it starts working.
Yeah.
So
from a distance. That's
happy to help. It's like my.
Thank you. Sorry to waste up time with that. It's just
No.
When you're not familiar with something and you start clicking stuff and then it doesn't really do anything. But also, I just have a quick question with the monitor. Because I was playing to try and solve it. I was just playing around with the monitor option. Yeah. I didn't quite get earlier when you're saying off is like so you don't hear the sound coming in.
Yes.
And then auto that's just you should always have auto on.
It depends. I was pretty annoyed by auto. Auto on for MIDI tracks makes total sense. Okay. On an audio track, I was annoyed by auto being on because then I was getting latency. I was hearing myself echoing back to myself. So I wanted it off for that. Yeah, on a MIDI track, auto. So auto means it's going to listen whenever the track is armed, unless there's, but even, it's a little bit different for MIDI tracks. When there's a clip playing and you play on a MIDI track, you'll hear both if it's armed. Anyway, small detail.
Okay, and then in is for when.
This is
okay. I think I've got that. Yeah.
In is going to work all the time, whether or not the track is armed.
Okay. Okay, sure. Great. Okay, thanks. I think that solves those things, and I'll watch the rest of the video tomorrow.
Bet. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a good evening. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, and I remember Natasha. Your question was from a while ago. You're getting just weird sound results from your voice, right?
Yeah. I recorded a tone and I can hear it play back, but it's like a when it plays back instead.
Okay. I wonder if are you on maybe a kind of an old, slow computer?
I'm not sure. It's my mom's old iMac. Well, I don't know if it's super old. I have no idea.
Let's see. when you play that note, you can look in the top right corner and see this percentage where I'm pointing. Is it getting really high?
Let me play it and see.
Yeah, let me hear.
Let's see if I can play this. It's 3%.
Okay, so it's not that. Can you play it out the speakers and I hear?
Sure, I'll try. Let's see if I can get this loud enough. Do you hear that?
Yeah. Cool. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna look at your screen. So I think to do that, I need to stop sharing my screen. So I'm gonna come back here, and then you can hit the share screen button at the bottom. It's green of the Zoom.
Okay.
And then you can pick a window that you want to share. So you can pick Ableton.
I'm not sure if it'll let me do that. I don't think I have that option.
So it's on the Zoom screen. If you put your mouse over your face at the middle of the Zoom window, then these extra things pop up on the bottom.
Yeah.
Like invite, manage participants, share screen.
Yeah.
Share screen.
Yeah, when I click that, it does. Ableton isn't one of the options, and desktop has a big like no sign on it.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Can you play me the first thing you did was just record a clip, right?
Yeah.
Play me that clip. Oh, so that's the clip? That's not you playing the sampler?
No, that's the audio I recorded.
Okay. And does it look like a bunch of stuttering things, or does it look like a big smooth note like you sang?
Oh, I gotta get back to that. I can't see it when I'm on audio. I can see it when I'm on the simpler, and it just looks like a really small line. Like I can't even really see the wave.
I want to go back to the source. So double click the clip and it'll open up the waveform.
Okay.
The original one you recorded.
Got it. Yeah.
And
this looks like a little tiny line.
Little tiny line. Okay. You can make it louder by turning up the, I'll show my screen again. By turning up the volume slider here.
Okay. All right. Let's see here.
Oh, here's another guess. What does it say under seg BPM, under warp?
120.
Great. And what's your overall tempo for the project?
4/4.
What's the tempo at the top left where I'm pointing?
120.
Okay, so it's not warping as a problem. If you, let's see, turn up the volume on it and see if it looks like dugga 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 dugga.
Yeah.
It does? Okay, so that happened, I don't know, that happened on the way in. You know, the sound happened before it hit Ableton. So it's nothing you're doing wrong in Ableton, but it is a kind of a big mystery about the computer and the microphone and stuff. Why don't you just try it again?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's my only idea at the moment.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Great to see you. I'm glad you're taking this.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Lita, we're going to work on some sampling from your own stuff. Lucian, did you have a question? I don't hear you talk. Maybe your settings need setting. I'm here in the chat. Cool, the same thing, same what? Cool, great. Okay, so we'll do this together. Lita, why don't you describe exactly what you'd like to do, and I'll make sure that I am heading in the right direction.
Okay. So I wanted to, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I wanted to drag my own track into Ableton and then take samples from that versus recording directly into Ableton like we just did.
Great. Okay. I'll start from the beginning.
Cool.
So we'll start with getting the right place into places. So have you done that where you?
No, I just like dragged a track directly from my files.
Cool. You can do that too. The one kind of persistent bug that I found in Ableton is that sometimes when you do that, it sticks to your finger and you can't drop it and you have to like force quit the program. So that's why I suggest always doing it this way.
Okay.
Which I'll just repeat quickly.
I do see where to do that.
Yeah, you just take some folder from the Finder and drop it under places.
Yeah.
Cool. So like here's a folder of all of my recordings of my pieces. So I presume you'll be doing something similar. I would start over in this environment.
Okay. So what I have is this track of mine in the horizontal view.
Yeah.
I was doing some Googling. It looks like that's where you manipulate it in that view versus the
that's where you can really do like editing. Yeah.
Okay. So I have gotten that far.
Cool. Great. Then I'm gonna mimic you. I've got a track here. And so the first thing that I would do is just like cut out things that I want. So I would listen through. First, I would, yes, stepping back one step. Depending on your settings, when you bring in a long audio file, it may try to warp it for you.
Yeah, it was doing that.
Yeah, so that's pretty annoying if you're working in anything that doesn't have a really clear, consistent beat.
Yeah.
It is pretty good at it if you are, but we want to get rid of this. So I choose the tempo that I want to be working in up here, and I can change this later, but basically I want this to match this, and that will make it play at the original speed. So this is what you should do. You should control click at the very first warp marker.
Okay.
And then choose warp and then the tempo from here.
Does it go from the top? Sorry, I'm looking at my own page.
Yeah. Warp 89 BPM from here, or whatever your BPM is.
Okay.
Warp from here will get rid of all of the future warp markers, and it will set this whole region to play as if its original speed was 89. So when you play it at 89, it plays at its original speed.
Okay.
Cool. Then just listen and cut out things that you like. So I'm listening here. I want to take this note. That's real nice. So I'll just select here. If I want to be off the grid so that I can select more precisely, I do Command 4. And that toggles off the grid so I can get exactly this sound.
Cool.
And then Command E is what you want to practice. It's for split.
Okay.
And then maybe right then rename it. And then you can get rid of stuff around it that you don't want.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready for the next thing.
Cool. Okay, I think I got that.
Cool. So yeah, you'll select the part you want, Command E to cut it out, and now it's its own region.
Mhm.
And then you might repeat this process and listen to the whole piece, however much you want, chop out the things that you want, give them names.
Cool.
With me?
Yes.
Cool. The next thing you might want to do is conform it to the meter so that you can loop things metrically.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go back to grid mode with Command 4. And then I'm going to double click it so it opens up down here.
Okay.
And it may be tempting. So we want to turn this into a loop, basically. It may be tempting to just hit the loop button, but it doesn't. It's a little dumb. It loops a different area than the one you have selected. So what you should do is select the area that you want down here.
Okay.
And hit Command L.
Okay. Command L. Got it.
Cool. So now you've got this area, and it's going to loop. If you were to, for example, stretch it out like this, then it'll keep placing loops in this view. Or you can move it into session view just by, like, you're going to drag it somewhere and hit Tab and drop it on that same track.
Okay. Let me try that. Where did it go? There we go. So so it's a little unclear in the lower view. In the lower view, I have my loop selected, but in the upper section, it's kind of unclear where the loop begins and ends because it was a portion of the section I originally split.
Well, yeah, why don't you chop some, you can move it onto a different track. Yeah, this might actually be my workflow. I have my original audio on one track, and then the things that I want to pull out, chop them and drag them down.
Okay.
So I end up with just the slices that I want on their own track.
Yeah. Okay, so now how do I get it into the, what's the vertical view called?
Session view.
Session view, okay.
So it's just drag and drop, except in the middle of dragging, you hit Tab.
Okay.
And the thing to think is you can drop it on any track, but if you're already thinking that it belongs on this track, you want to drop it on the same track that you picked it up from. You definitely don't want to drop it on a MIDI track if it's an audio file and vice versa.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense.
Cool. Let me show you the next thing.
Cool.
That's this. So when you're in the lower view and you're looking at your loop that you've made, you're probably off the timeline. And it would be really nice if 111 was right here so that you can
Okay.
see how long it is and how it falls on the grid.
Yes.
So you just go to the beginning and control click and say set 111 here.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
And now I see that I have a loop that's, you know, two bars and change long.
Yeah.
And so I can either, I mean, I need to make it a round number, probably. And if I want to bring the sound with me, like if I'm taking something that's metered, let me jump to an example there. So let me I'll try to cut out like a bar of what I hear. Okay. You can also do looping up here, which is really useful in situations like this. Select what you're interested in, hit Command L, and it'll make a loop area up here. So you can check and see if you got, maybe I want a little more, a little less to find a loop. And then Command E to select that. I get it close. I'm going to go through those same steps as before. Select what I like. It's annoying you have to do it twice. Select what you like, Command L. Set 111 here.
So I now have like negative time when I do that.
Yeah, so it'll make, if 111 is the place you told it to be,
Yeah.
then it goes negative for stuff before it.
Okay. And is there a way I can get rid of that negative space so that my cursor just like starts at 1?
Well, you can, you know, right now this is saying I've got the whole piece and I'm just, this region is only taking this little slice of it and doing the loop with it.
Yeah.
You can crop it. Yeah, you can say consolidate or
Okay.
crop, actually is more to the point. And it will chop off the audio at the beginning and the end, but you don't really need to do that. It's nice to have the whole thing around in case you want to make adjustments. But yeah, you can crop and then work with a really simple area.
Okay.
But the next step is probably warping. So if I've got this loop and I want it to be, to make sense with my grid, I'll turn on the metronome.
Okay.
And make sure that my length of my loop is a round number. So I'm just going to type in 1 here and length.
Okay.
And then I'm going to use warp markers to adjust the timing. So I feel like that's 3. Maybe I want this to be, this is a little hard music to hear. You can get rid of warp markers by clicking on them and then hitting.
And how do you add warp markers?
Just double click.
Okay.
And double click deletes them. So like maybe I say I want this last hit to happen on 4. And this is the downbeat, let's just say. Oh, that's it. And it's glitchy because I'm in beats mode, so I want to pick one of these other ones. I'm getting a little more at the beginning than I want. So you'll just play with these warp markers. Try to use as few of them as possible to like get your thing lined up with the meter that you want. And then when it's really grooving, put it somewhere, maybe drop it on in your session view so you can play with it there. And move on to the next one.
Cool. Okay, that's awesome.
The warp marker stuff just takes practice. But the basic idea is you can grab any bit of audio that you see and move it anywhere on the grid that you want it to be.
Okay, cool.
Oh, I closed the, let's see. How are you doing, Lucian? Is this useful? Any other questions? Oh, and then it's easy then. You can take this loop and drop it in a simpler and play it on an instrument or slice it like we did today. This works just as well as material as what we recorded for those other kinds of sampling.
Okay, this is super helpful.
Cool. I'm gonna stop recording.